Today I want to talk a little bit about an idea I had for air combat in Civ VI. Now, one of the things about air combat in Civ V that I thought was quite boring is that you just would use planes to clear things out. You'd bomb the occasional unit. It was very spammable. You'd always have some planes up. Your bombings didn't feel very meaningful, and a lot of times you could just spam them all the time. I mean, of course, you take some damage, but there wasn't really much to air combat. Get a bunch of bombers and throw them in a general direction. And I think that in the late game, that was one of the things that was quite unfortunate. I mean, the late game already wasn't very engaging. It was just you watching lots of bombers bomb the shit out of everything. So I didn't think it was very interesting, and I think I have an idea for air combat in Civ 6. Now, I have to preface this by saying that obviously they have their air combat figured out by now. So I'm not trying to say like, oh, they should change it, or they're going to change it by the time the game comes out. Like, I'm not trying to say that. But I am trying to say that this is something to consider, and assuming they have a new engine, hopefully it's changeable enough, or the game is changeable enough with this new engine, if it's so highly moddable, that this would be something that they could implement in future expansions. If it doesn't make it future expansions, maybe it'll make it in Civ 7. But I would like Civ 6 to do a little bit better with air combat. I mean, really, the weakness of Civ is the late game. It's really weak compared to other parts in the game. So I think this could spice things up for sure, especially considering that war always ends up happening. So if war always ends up happening in the game, and that's how people win a lot of the time, what you want to be doing is making that very interesting, right? You want to double down on that. Just like the best Total War games are really good at the combat that happens in the games, because that's what people do all the time. Alright, so how's the air combat in 5? You get your airstrikes, you get your intercepts, you get your clearing out of zones, you get your anti-air, right? Stuff to take into account. And although I don't mention in this version of air combat, I do think that it should be in Civ 6 as well. I mean, I think it should be in this new version that I consider, although I don't talk about it. And again, yeah, planes increase in range as it goes through age ages. I like that. I think that makes sense, and it changes how the game is played a little bit. It adds a little bit of an interesting point, but it's very basic. Okay, so Civ 5 combat. Yeah, it's simple. It's forgiving. Usually bombers don't get completely wrecked when they get intercepted by a fighter, and it doesn't punish you for using a single plane here and there. You can put one there, one there, one there. It's whatever, Here's what the unfortunate parts are. It's very, very boring to watch. I mean, you can see one plane go by, one plane go by, one plane go by. I mean, obviously you can turn off animations, but if you like to see the animations occasionally, you got to see like 15 of them or whatever. It doesn't feel very epic. I want Civ to feel epic, which is part of the reason why, again, I was a little bit disappointed at the map size when I originally saw it with Civ 6. I mean, but I want the Civ to feel epic, right? You can't really feel epic when you have like planes going one at a time bombing something, or one plane hitting one location. That's not very exhilarating. And so when you clear things, honestly I'm not always sure how much is being cleared. That's another strange thing about that. And unfortunately I didn't go into enough detail with that, and I can do a little bit more. And I'll try to talk about it, but that's one thing. And yeah, it's basic, and it doesn't give you the interesting decisions that you might like. And yeah, it stays fairly similar as the ages go by. Okay, so in the Spirits of the Corps system, I'm thinking of a fleet system, right? It would allow for more planes to be together, fighting together. And it'd have more interesting decisions, as in you have that little mini game of how you're going to put your little fleet together, your little squadron, right? Yeah, so again, this idea comes from the Corps system, right? You've got the different units and you combine them, right? Your fighters or your bombers, that kind of stuff, right? And you could even have tactical bombers, like the A-10 or whatever, come into play later. But yeah, you choose one bomber and two fighters, or two fighters and one bomber. That's the idea. Alright, so this is how the fleet system would look, right? So you'd have your fighter and then you have your bombers. So fighters and bombers combine. When they attack a target, the fighters fly in, intercept any other fighters, and then they, once they've intercepted them, the defending fighters, if there are enough of them, i.e. 2 defending fighters versus 1 attacking fighter, they would use their extra damage value, which, for example, like let's just think of this plane as a pillow, right? It can absorb about like one plane's worth of damage. A little bit more than one plane's worth of damage, but it can absorb up to 2. So what happened is he would fight the 2 other fighters, and then they would attack these. They would use their extra damage. So he would fly back. He's already dealt some damage to them. They've dealt more to him, and they have extra damage, so they deal it to these planes, right? So they kind of split up their damage between what they can do to fighters and what they can do to the bombers after that. Also, fighters, once they get past this fighter, they would deal extra bonus damage to bombers. Obviously, they would deal more to bombers than they would to other fighters. The idea being that the bombers aren't defending themselves, so they can just have free reign on shooting them. So the idea is you got to strike a balance between defending the bombers and putting as many bombers as you can. Right. Yeah, and they would do more damage to fighters that they outnumber. So the more you outnumber the fighter, the more you outnumber the enemy fighters, the more damage you do. Like you'd have like some sort of bonus to it, potentially, not necessarily, but potentially. So case 1. Here you have 1 fighter and 2 bombers and 3 fighters. So this fleet attempts to bomb. These 3 fly out. They do very heavy damage to this fighter because it's 3 versus 1. They almost shoot him down. He goes back. He's on fire. He barely makes it back home. Right. And then you've got these 2 bombers. So these 3 fighters go after these 2 bombers and do extremely high damage. Probably shoot 1 or 2 of them down. The damage would be split between these. But I'm guessing if you've got 3 fighters and you've got 2 of these bombers, these would probably be in critical condition after you've intercepted them with 3. Maybe not shot down. I mean, obviously numbers can be adjusted, but that's the idea. They get through the defense, and then they do a bunch of damage to the bombers. The bombing obviously still occurs, but these 2 bombers could not be used for many turns because they've been intercepted by 3 fighters, aka this player has lost the opportunity to do any more bombing runs for a very long time without the risk of just losing his planes. So he would have to sit there like however many turns, quite a few turns, I'd say at least 5 turns, probably more, before he could do anything, because these fighters would come in and just mess him up. These fighters, having a higher number count, would have taken very little damage, would be up to defend anything else coming in the near future. The idea with this is that you would station your fighters in a city or whatever. If there was an airport district near the city, you would station them there, and they would be assigned to that city, right? That would be the idea with them. They'd be assigned to that city, and yeah, they would defend strikes around that city on tiles assigned to that city. Yeah, that's what they would be doing, or defending that city itself. So again, the idea is they have so many planes that they have extra damage. This can absorb only a little bit over like 1, so it can absorb like about 1.5 fighters worth of damage from the same age, perhaps. And once you get up to 2, there would be a little bit of extra damage that would start spilling over to these guys. So the more planes, the more damage you do to this guy. If you had 4 here, for example, he'd be shot down. But yeah, 3 would be the most that one single fighter could take without being shot down. And then very heavy damage would come to the bombers. Whether they get shot down or not is not the point. But the point is, you got to strike a balance, right? And this guy has chosen to say, hey, I'm going to attack with very little defense. I'm going to have 1 plane only covering my bombers, and I don't care. I just want to bomb the city, which is a fair enough tactic if the city's already weakened. And these 3 planes would make sure that he doesn't do it again for a long time, because all of these would be severely crippled. That's the idea, right? And the great thing of this system is, again, you're heavily punished, but you're not like going to lose the plane game just because of one mistake. But you will be heavily crippled and won't be able to do anything for a while. Case 2. Side A attacks B. Okay, so this guy's attacking, this guy's defending. So he's 1 era ahead, so let's say he has the information age plane. So what ends up happening is these 2 engage. He's stronger than him, so what ends up happening, he does more damage to him, and he also has extra damage to do to them. So, actually, no. Unfortunately, in this situation, he has extra damage. He does all of it to him, more than he would, more than 1 of the same plane would, but not as many as 2. So he doesn't do any damage to the planes, actually. And why this is so important is because you can feel the kind of 1-to-1 ratio, right, being maintained. So if you're 1 era ahead, there's a 1-to-1 ratio of fighter to another fighter where you know that you won't be, that your bombers are safe, right? If you attack and you know there's only 1 fighter, you can do it safely, even if it's a fighter of this, 1 era ahead, right? And I think this is a nice ratio to keep to allow people to easily grasp the system and play with it. Obviously, if he had 2 planes here, he'd be doing quite a bit of damage to these bombers. But since it's a 1-to-1 ratio, it's an easy system to grasp, and Civ 5 has to be, some of the parts of it have to be easy to grasp, and I think that would be one thing that would be nice, and that would be appreciated by the community, by players anyways. But yeah, so the point is, if you have an advanced fighter, it makes a difference. This guy takes a lot more damage, but it still is not enough damage to attack these bombers. So the bombers would still do their thing, but this guy would be damaged more so, quite a bit more so than if you had the same one. Damage absorption idea. So yeah, one plane can, let's say, absorb 100 damage. So let's say these guys try to bomb this one intercepts. These guys do 60 damage to each other, and the bomber bombs and nothing happens. Again, like the example from before, one plane above, era. They fight each other. This guy takes more damage than this guy, but the bomber's still safe. Here, you have 2, right? So you've invested more, and you manage to actually do damage to this plane and do damage to the bomber. The bomber is hit. He still bombs, but he's hit. And as you can see, it's easy to grasp. 1 versus 1, 1 versus 1, 1 versus 2. Now, obviously, if you were 2 eras ahead, then that could be a different story. But let's just consider 1 era ahead. Here, again, 2 advanced fighters, and you choose to attack with 1. You would take heavy damage on this one, of course, and this one would take extremely heavy damage. So that's kind of how it would work. It would be easy to work between the ages, because there's always situations where you're 1 age ahead, right? 1 age ahead. Okay, the advantage of the system. As squadrons get larger, they get bonuses to damage / effectiveness, which basically, the bigger the squad you have, the more powerful it becomes. But obviously, there's a cap to the size. The issue with the old system is, bombing runs one after another. Very boring, not very epic, right? Just tedious to look at and hard to appreciate instead of just seeing one bombing run go down and have it be kind of epic, right? There'd be skill involved in putting squads together. You'd have to kind of balance, risk versus reward. Oh, I want to do a bunch of damage to this city. Okay, I'll go in. I'll expend the damage on my planes, but then I'll be able to take the city. So there would be skill, thought process involved. Okay, I can have 6 bombers in this squad, or I only need 3, but that way I'll keep them safe. So you can kind of choose to be careful with your squads, having heavy fighter counts, or have heavy bomber counts. And again, there would be a little bit of anti-air involved, but I don't want to bring this into the equation yet. Another thing is Civs could have bonus squadron size. So yeah, again, some Civs could have specialties you can have +1 to your squad size if you're this Civ. That would allow for some interesting late game Civ options, or larger squad effectiveness. Maybe one nation has if you have more than 5 fighters, or if you have more than 5 planes in a squad, you have a bonus, something like that. I don't know, but these are just some ideas. Squad size throughout the ages. So you see, this is just an example. It doesn't have to be like this, but yeah, 4 planes for World War I. They're just starting to figure out, how to use planes. They're not too sure about how to use them. World War II, they've got bigger squads. You've got more options on what you can do. And then in Information Age, you've got bigger squads. You can do really what you want. And the reason I don't increase these too much is because I think that already having the advantage of the age is big enough. So having a slightly bigger squad also makes a huge difference. How much the World War II player can compete with the Info Era player. So yeah, basically, if you're the World War II player and you want to deal with the bombings of the Info Era, you're able to, because you'd have to fully dedicate a fighter squad to his partial fighter squad, if that makes sense. So you've got a way to fight as the World War II player, but it's not very effective. But it is a way to fight. So I don't want to let these get too huge. I want a minor increase. So yeah, 4 to 6 to 8. Yeah, 4, 6, 8. So +2, +2, right? That's kind of the idea. So why increasing squad size? Well, this kind of allows for an inflection point, right? The game changes. It's always interesting when Civ changes up, when you get your World Congress, when you get your extra religion, when you get whatever you're getting. It's always kind of exciting. So I think this would this system would introduce itself to players hey, look, I'm a nice little system. I'm easy to use. I have only 4 fighters, right? Or 4 slots. And then you see the system evolve. Oh, I have 6 now. That's kind of exciting. I can do new stuff with it. Oh, I have 8 now. I can do new stuff with it. That's the idea. Anyways. And yeah, the idea is planes don't get that much stronger. They get stronger, but they don't get that much stronger. that it's like impossible to compete with them. That's no fun. You want to have a chance, right? I mean, of course, a World War II plane can't compete with an information age, obviously. But Civ is about, again, abstraction, right? Not about, realism. And yeah, it allows people to, fight each other and still have some sort of a chance as like a player that's like one era down. I think that's kind of the fun of the game. You still have a shot. You're not going to win in a fair fight, but you have a shot. And yeah, I think that's the idea. Like, another reason why I don't want these planes to be too strong in comparison is because if you make them too strong, then later you could run into the issue of the player just goes up in air and he's like, haha, I'm much better than you, I've upgraded my planes, and I don't have to do anything else. No, the player has to invest in getting more planes before really leveraging his advantage fully. Yeah, you've got an advantage, but nothing comes for free. Now, obviously, being ahead in tech wasn't free. It was, you did it with skill, but it doesn't mean that like you should automatically just be able to squash others. Like, you should still have more to it than that. I think that's boring. It's boring for the guy losing, and it's boring for the guy winning, because the guy winning is winning even harder without too much of an effort, and the guy losing is losing even harder, and he has no way back in the game. So you want to give him like a chance to stay in the game without, right? So that's why I want these strengths to not be too different, and to have squad size be a bigger factor in how you win. So they have to say, okay, I am ahead of you now, I have better planes, so I have a somewhat of an advantage, but my advantage will really be there once I increase my squad size. And then these advantages kind of compound themselves. And yeah, that's about all I got. I think disadvantages, people might miss the flexibility of sending one plane here, one plane there. I personally didn't find it very fun. I thought it was boring. Like, click this plane, make him hit that. Click this plane, make him hit that. Click this plane, make him hit that. I think that's kind of boring. And yeah, you'll have like Squad of Doom situations where you just see that fleet that you just can't deal with. It's just too many planes. Now, obviously, I'd say, well, it's just like if you have a huge army at your doorstep. Why is there a huge army at your doorstep? Why don't you have defenses? I think it's because you've made a mistake letting that Squad of Doom happen. Maybe you've let him get 2 arrows ahead of you. Maybe you've built no planes and decided, hey, I don't need to defend against planes. I have no idea. But either way, if it happens, it would probably be because you've let it happen, or because somebody's just that far ahead away from you. So those two things could be disadvantages. Additional points, yeah, I am really considering cooldowns on strikes, even if it's like a one-turn cooldown. I think it'd be nice, have them be impactful, but not be all the time. I know a lot of people don't like that. A lot of people want to be able to do whatever they want every turn and have that flexibility, but I feel like you lose some of the meaningfulness when your bombers can go every single turn. But again, this is not something that has to happen. It's just an idea. It doesn't have to happen. Yeah, so fighters should not be able to bomb cities. I think that's definitely a thing. Obviously, they're really bad at doing that already. They're not great. But I think they should just not be able to do it. Just make them what they're for. They're not there to bomb cities. They're there to bomb, like take out other planes or take out like a tank or something, right? Yeah. So yeah, again, the system aims not to be harsh. It means to just planes don't get shot down too easily, so that we don't have like a quick snowball of like, oh, I shot down one of your planes, now you're screwed. I want the system to be like, okay, if you've got a disadvantage, you can't do as much. I don't want you to get completely crushed. Like, you send in one plane and then, oh my god, I didn't realize he had 3. You don't get destroyed, but you get very heavy damage. So that plane's out of commission for a long time. I think that's fair. I think 4 versus 1, so like I think this would be like a fair ratio of how much damage you take. 4, if you send a plane into 4 fighters, okay, it's shot down. Like, that's fine. But less than that, you can have him be at like 90% damage or whatever. Yeah, so bad decisions are penalized, but they don't end the game for you in terms of the air war. Yeah, air battles should be encouraged, and you make mistakes, but the game has to be fun at the end of the day. So you still get punished, you just don't get completely crushed by making mistakes in air warfare. That's all I got for you guys today, and I hope you like this. Please leave some comments and let me know what you think. Have a great day.